Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before I get into today's video, I would like to say a huge thank you to Filippo Caroso for sending in some awesome pictures of his converted Imperial Guard models. Now if you notice guys, I have included some pictures of unpainted models, which is very unusual when I'm doing these introductions, but the reason I did is so you guys can have an idea of the parts that were used for these models. They do look like they were mostly built from Anvil industry stuff, and I have to say, Filippo, I absolutely love the paint scheme that you have done with these guys. They look really good. All the conversions and everything just really makes this squad pop and come alive. So thank you very much for sending in those pictures. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page. There will be a link down in the description below. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. So today I'm going to be focusing on the Psychic Awakening the Greater Good book, and what I'm going to be doing is going through the new custom regimental doctrines. I know a lot of you guys are really excited for this, and I did cover what was revealed by Games Workshop, but now there's been enough leaks and reveals and whatnot online that we pretty much have the full picture of what is available. So I'm going to go through some stuff today and tomorrow, and then when I have the book in hand, we're going to be looking at lots and lots of Psychic Awakening stuff. We're going to be covering all aspects of it, mostly focused on the Guard, but also on the Genestealer cult as well. So without further ado, let's get through some of these custom regiment traits. So for first things first, to explain the custom regiment traits, essentially guys, you can pick one of the main regiments that is in the codex, and that is the bonuses you get. So for example, if you pick Catachan, you get the +1 strength, you get the +1 leadership if you're near an officer, and you get to reroll the random number of shots on your vehicles. Or if you're Morden Guard, you get the +1 leadership if you're all ranked up, and everyone gets a 5+ Overwatch pretty much. Or, and the advantage of picking one of those custom regiments is, whilst they might be a little bit rigid, you may find if you're running a pure Catachan army that you love the +1 strength, you love the +1 leadership, but you're just not getting enough out of the vehicle side of things. It just doesn't feel like you're gaining anything. The advantage of that is that you get if you have a what we'll call sort of a regiment of renown, one of the classic regiment traits, one of the ones covered in the main codex, you also get access to that regiment's unique order, warlord trait, and relic, and stratagem. Okay, so if that's the advantage of picking one of the old traits. The advantage of picking one of the new traits is you can tailor your regiment and your doctrines to be as efficient as possible, so you're always getting the most out of your men. So if you're running a couple of pure infantry detachments and then a pure tank detachment, you could take 2 custom regiments and really tailor the traits so that you're getting the most out of everything. It's a really the disadvantage is obviously you don't get a custom warlord trait, custom relic, order, or stratagem. However, for some regiments that is a big deal. Like if you're playing Cajun and you lose the lost relic of Cajun, that is a big deal. However, but if you're playing one of the other regiments, like myself, like Mordian Guard, a lot of the stuff that you get, which is unique to you, isn't that good. So, for example, the Morden Relic is considered to be quite weak. It does give a guy a 4+ feel no pain, but it's a guard character, and let me tell you, I've used that relic many times, and the guy just often dies anyway. Unique order is okay. You basically get to use rapid fire weapons like sniper weapons. You can shoot characters, but still not huge, not a big bonus. And the stratagem got nerfed into the ground by Games Workshop. So for someone like myself, these custom and regiment traits are really good. It allows me to run my regiment as the Mordians how I feel they should be. Okay, so that's the great thing about the custom traits. Now when you're building a custom regiment, you pick 2 traits from the list. Not 1, you get to pick 2. Okay, now that means that you can pick for let's say you're running dual battalion and you have all your Lehman Russes, or you're running a battalion, sorry, of infantry, and you're running a spearhead of Lehman Russes. That what you'd be wise to do is to make a custom regiment trait for the detachment, which is the battalion full of infantry, and take a second custom regiment trait for the vehicles. And that way, what you're kind of getting, obviously they're two separate detachments. What you're kind of getting the advantage of is like you're getting like 4 picks then. Okay, that's that 4 regiment traits. That's kind of cool. What we're going to look at today, guys, we're going to go through these traits now. We're going to analyze them individually, but then also look at how these can be comboed most effectively. What two picks naturally go together the best, and whether these are better than the book traits. You know, the classic ones, the old school ones, like the Mordians, the Cadians, the Catachans, the Destroyers. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is Gunnery Experts. When you roll to determine the type characteristic of any weapon or vehicle model with this doctrine is equipped with, you can re-roll 1 of the dice. This is essentially half of the current Catachan doctrine, and this is really, really powerful. Straight off the bat, guys, I would say if you're running a custom regiment doctrine for tanks, this is the one you want to be picking first and foremost. This saves you a lot of command points. How it works is if you roll, let's say you've got a battle cannon on your Lehman Russ, you roll the dice to determine the random number of shots. It's d6 shots. You get a 1 or a 2, something low. Without having to use a CP, you can re-roll that dice, and you might re-roll it. You might suddenly find that you're getting a 6 or 5. You know, you might be getting a massive improvement. And don't forget, guys, the way the Lehman Russ rule works, the grinding advance rule, you shoot the battle cannon and then you get to shoot it again. So what that means is with your Lehman Russ turret weapons, you would get to shoot the first time, roll the random number of dice, re-roll it if you want to, and shoot the second time, and you also get to re-roll that second one with this Gunnery Experts, okay? Because it says when you roll to determine the type characteristic of any weapon model this doctrine is equipped with, okay? So you roll the first time, you roll the second time. Now, to clarify something here, if you have a weapon that fires 2d6 shots, for example, the Manticore, you do not get to reroll both in that instance, right? The reason being is you're only rolling to determine the random number of shots once. It's 2d6. So you roll your 2 dice to determine the random number of Manticore shots. You might get double 1. You could only use a regiment trait to reroll 1 of those dice in that instance, because it's firing once. But you could use a CP on the second one. You could use a command reroll on the second one, so that's how you could reroll both. But if you didn't have that command point available, you would only be able to reroll 1 of the dice. That's the difference between the Lehman Russ and things like the Manticore and the Baneblade Cannon. The Lehman Russ fires once, stop, fires again. So that's why you get to reroll both. The Manticore just fires once, but it fires 2 dice when it fires that one time. Right? So that's really, really powerful. You can just explain the way it works. Explain. Obviously, that's just super powerful, guys. It's going to save you a lot of command points. More importantly, it's going to give you a lot of consistency with those dice rolls. How many times every single person who's ever used a Lehman Russ, even for just 2 or 3 games, has rolled those dice to determine the number of shots and has got a 1 or a 2 every single time. And you might use a CP, it doesn't go, but you can't use that for every single one of your tanks. What if you've got 4 or 5 tanks? That's how. This is a really, really powerful really powerful trait. It should be the first and foremost one. I don't need to go over it anymore. It gives reliability to your shots and saves you command points. Next one. Spotter details. Add 6 to the range characteristic of heavy weapons with a range of at least 24 inches that models with this doctrine are equipped with. Okay. So the first one that we looked at, Gunnery Experts, only affects vehicles. Spotter details affects all units in your army. Okay. So this is really good for it is. However, I say it affects all units. Primarily, this thing is going to be affecting your vehicles again because they're the ones that have all the heavy weapons. This is kind of like the Vestroyan Doctrine, but this one only affects your heavy weapons, whereas if you went for the pure Vestroyan Doctrine from the Codex, you'd get 6-inch range to your heavy and your rapid fire weapons. So this is only half of that. Okay. Now what you could do, now how this works really well is on things like Demolisher Cannons, which have only got a 24-inch range. Suddenly they've got a 30-inch range. Punisher Cannons, again, they go from having a 24-inch range. So I don't know if I said 24-inch range Demolisher Cannon, 24-inch range Punisher Cannon, both of those go up to 30-inch range. Okay, you're not going to find this so useful on things like Battle Cannons, which are going to be your go-to, because they've already got a 72-inch range. However, you will find it useful on your Demolisher, you will find it useful on your Punisher, you will find it useful on your Plasma, Executioner Plasma. The big downside of the Executioner Plasma, it's only got a 36-inch range, and as someone who uses those things every single game, I often find myself in this weird position where I'm being outranged, even though I've got Plasma and stuff. So it brings us up to a 42-inch range. That's really good. Affects your multi-melters on the side of your tanks as well. So if you do go for multi-melters and your side plasma cannons, they go up by 6 inches. Really interesting thing to note here, guys. This affects all your vehicles, all your models, sorry, but that means it also affects things like heavy flamers, which are a heavy D6. They're not an assault D6. They just don't care. You don't normally care about them being heavy because they automatically hit. But you know who's really going to benefit from this? Hellhounds. Hellhounds are the whole heavy flamer. How many times have you used your Hellhounds and you've been trying to take advantage of kiting the enemy, using that 16-inch range on the Inferno Cannon, but then you just feel like you're wasting, the heavy flamer and it's barely getting to shoot. If you had a 6-inch range to that heavy flamer, that thing's got a 14-inch range. That's pretty much the same as your Inferno Cannon. That's really, really good. Don't forget this is going to affect heavy flamers on your infantry squads as well. So in your veteran squads, if you're the kind of guy that likes to run triple plasma guns in your veteran squads, and outflank them using the dagger of Tusaka, or something similar. Now you could add a heavy flamer into that plasma squad, and you'd still be able to come in from outflank and still get an extra D6 shots. That's tasty. So this is just. It's not so helpful on your regular infantry squads because the minimum range on a regular infantry squad is 36-inch range with a heavy bolter. Having a 42-inch range heavy bolter is pretty good. I won't deny that. It's not as good. This is really designed for bringing your short range heavy weapons, like we've previously mentioned, up to being medium range weapons. Although you could apply it to heavy bolter because obviously it's good for the plasma tanks as well. I would say for this one, whilst the first one is an auto include, I would say, the Gunnery Experts, if you're running a vehicle heavy list, this is a strong second pick. Okay, a strong second pick, and one that I would recommend if you're running Demolisher Cannons and Punisher Cannons and lots of plasma tanks. This is definitely the one you want to be going for. If you're running lots of battle tanks, wouldn't worry about it. Battle cannons, wouldn't worry about this one so much, but if you're running demolishers and plasmas and stuff like that, this is a really good one to take. And Hellhounds, this would be my second pick for that. Okay. Next one, disciplined shooters. When an infantry model with this doctrine shoots with a rapid fire weapon against you that is within 18-inch, double the number of attacks this weapon makes, rather than following the normal rules for rapid fire weapons. So what this basically means, guys, is you get an 18-inch rapid fire. I've seen some mistakes on the internet about this where people think, does this mean if I get within 18 inches and then use first rank fire, second rank fire, I get 8 shots? That is not the case. You do not get 8 shots. This doesn't double anything in that way. It essentially just means your rapid fire weapons, which in the Guard are pretty much all, your las guns, which have got 24-inch range and a 12-inch rapid fire range. What happens is that 12-inch rapid fire range just goes to 18. So, to make it absolutely clear, if I am running an infantry squad and I am within 18 inches of an enemy unit and they've all got las guns and I put First rank fire, second rank fire, on that squad, I get 4 shots per guy within 18-inch range. That is just, if that's the clearest way of explaining it, alright? It then means between 19 inches and 24 inches, I have my normal 1 to 2 shots. If I've got first rank fire, second rank fire, it just means I don't have to get within 12-inch range to get rapid fire. Okay, that's it. It's just it just extends the extra shot range by 6 inches. It doesn't give you any more shots. This one, so now we've explained that, now we know how it works. This one is honestly my #1 pick for a pure infantry detachment. This is absolutely fantastic. The vast majority of weapons in your army are lasguns. Lasguns are absolutely fantastic when they are in first rank fire, second rank fire range, because each guy in your army is getting 4 shots. It is widely accepted that you can drown anything in enough lasgun shots, and that anything that allows you to get more of those shots quicker is good. Okay, don't forget, this is one of the few traits that you can get maximum efficiency out of incredibly quickly. If you take an infantry squad, give them a bolter on the sergeant, that's a rapid fire weapon, and a plasma gun on the in the squad as well, that's a special weapon you can take, then every single model in that squad can take advantage of this regiment trait. Every single one. That is 100% efficiency from a regiment trait. That is very difficult to achieve. You don't, looking at Gunnery Experts, you don't get that with every single vehicle. What if you're running things like Punishers? You don't get a random number of dice. That regiment trait doesn't help you. Same with Exterminators. Same with Vanquishers. Spotter Details. Yes, this is absolutely great having extra 6-inch range on those short range weapons. But if you've got a battle can, like I mentioned, you're not getting anything for that regiment trait. It's not as good. Disciplined Shooters. You can very easily get maximum efficiency, and those are weapons you're going to want to take anyway. Bolt guns are 1 point. You can very easily find the points to give every single squad in your army a bolt gun. If you were to take triple battalion and take 18 infantry squads, that's only 18 points. Do you see what I mean? It's very easy to find those points for bolters. Likewise, plasma is the best special weapon you can take as a take-all-comers special weapon in your guard infantry squads. You don't have to overcharge it. You can just get loads and loads of strength 7 AP minus 3 shots. That's still great. And if you do overcharge it, it goes from being an anti-everything gun to like an anti-tank, anti-heavy infantry gun. So having the ability to get maximum efficiency out of one trait is great. This thing, I have used this trait. This is a rip-off of part of the Armageddon Steel Legion trait. This is the best part of that trait, and I have used this trait in a battle report. It's on my channel. Go and check that out. It's really, really good, and I've used this trait for years when using my Armageddon Steel Legion. You have something similar to this, and it is absolutely fantastic. This is the #1 infantry trait to take in your guard army. Okay. The next one, fire from the hip. Infantry models with this doctrine can shoot rapid fire weapons. They are equipped with, even if they advance, but when resolving such attack, to subtract 1 from the hit roll. This one's not very good. Okay? Because it basically makes your guns like assault weapons, kind of. The problem with this is that guard don't need it. We already have access to forwards for the Emperor, which allows you to move and advance and fire without penalty. So this is a worse version of that. So it's not as good. If you go and look at the Talon Doctrine, they get this, but without the -1 to hit. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, guys. Yes, you could take this and combine it with first rank fire, second rank fire. Totally true. But if you're planning on doing that, why not just take the Talon Doctrine? Even if you're running pure infantry and you could combine it with something else, just take the Talon Doctrine. Okay? This is a poor doctrine, I'm sorry to say. If it didn't have the -1, it would be fantastic. It does have the -1, as a result, not interested. Combined or specs. When resolving an Overwatch attack made by a regiment vehicle model with this doctrine, whilst within 3 inches of another friendly regiment vehicle, a hit roll of 5 plus scores a hit. This is basically the bad part of the Mordian Iron Guard doctrine. It's okay, and yes, you can do this and then combine it with defensive gunners for one vehicle to get a 4 plus to hit, but it's not ideal. Okay, it's a very good defensive doctrine, but I'm not a massive fan of defensive doctrines. I'm going to be very hypocritical about that later, but it's kind of it's situational. That's the problem with it. It's situational. What if you face an army? Shooting is king in 8th edition. Okay, shooting is king in 8th edition. There's going to be a lot of games you're going to play where you're not going to have your vehicles charged. If you screen effectively as guard, you take 12 infantry squads over a couple of battalions, your vehicles shouldn't be getting charged. You should be able to stop that. Bear in mind that this vehicle also needs to be within 3 inches of another friendly vehicle. So if you don't stop the enemy, they're more than likely going to tag 2 vehicles. So it actually forces you to bunch up, which is a problem. Okay, this is good on infantry. It is bad on vehicles. If they'd made this for infantry, this would be a good trait to have. Sadly, it's not. Next one, Agile Warriors. When an infantry unit with this doctrine advances, you can reroll the advance roll. That one's okay. I've seen a lot of people dismiss this one. I don't think it's a great doctrine to have, but I think it is deceptively okay. Because how you can take advantage of this, imagine if you want to move. How many times have we all had a game where you've had to move an infantry squad onto an objective, and all you needed to get was a 2, and you roll a 1, and you didn't have any CP left because it was the end of the game. This is really good. So you can move and advance, re-roll that advance roll in the movement phase, and then the shooting phase, you can tell that squad to move again with an order. It gets to move and advance, and you can re-roll that advance roll as well. I would not totally dismiss this trait. Okay, it's very good if you want to sort of play a bit anti-meta, screen out those bloody Raven Guard Centurions, screen out all those armies which like to rely on deep striking, and it gives you good board control. And board control is important. Okay, I don't think it's a super strong one, but I think it could be useful for board control and late game objective grabs. I think that would be actually quite a good one to take in ITC, where board control and cumulative objectives and all that jazz is really important. Next one, Pyromaniacs. Resolving an attack made with a flamer, heavy flamer, or twin heavy flamer by a model with this doctrine, you can reroll wound rolls of 1. This is an okay one. Again, middle of the road. I think it's fluffy, it's flavoursome, but it's not top tier. The main problem I have with this is that it doesn't affect the Hellhound's Inferno Cannon. If it affected the Hellhound's Inferno Cannon, I would say this was a fantastic trait to take. I really would. As it is, it's not ideal. However, I would say the following thing, which is not everyone uses their infantry like I use my infantry, which is to do most of the heavy lifting. A lot of people take infantry squads to just screen, and they do most of the heavy lifting with their vehicles. The most common weapon you find in infantry squads for that purpose is flamers. Okay, because a lot of people don't like grenade launchers because they think, well, I can get first one, fast, second one, fire and get more shots than I can get out of a grenade launcher on average, and that's true. So a lot of people gravitate towards taking flamers in their guard squad. It's an iconic weapon, and it's pretty cheap, and it's a good. You get enough of those things, it's a good Overwatch deterrent, and it also gives guard an ability to get past their crappy ballistic skill. So I would actually say this one isn't as bad as a lot of people are making it out to be. I think you could leverage this. You could take Pyromaniacs. You could put it on a command squad with 4 flamers in it, veteran squad with 3 flamers and a heavy flamer, special weapons squad with 3 flamers. All these things, they could be jumping out of chimeras. You could use this. This is a good one to take if you want to build a custom regiment, but you're not, and you've just got a load of screening infantry with flamers. This is not a bad one to take at all. It gives you. Why is it okay? Because it affects any vehicle. It affects any unit, not vehicles or infantry. It affects all of them. And it at the end of the day, guys, this increases your damage output. There's a lot of ones here that don't do that. 5 from the hip doesn't do that. Combined all specs doesn't really do that. It does on the Overwatch, but it's a last ditch attempt. Agile Warriors doesn't increase your Overwatch. That doesn't increase your damage output. Sorry. Disciplined Shooters lets you get your damage output going off quicker, and so sort of indirectly increases your damage output. And this thing is similar. It increases your damage output. That's never a bad thing. Next one, Wilderness Survivors. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon against an infantry unit with this doctrine, if that unit did not advance in its previous movement phase, it is treated as having the benefit of cover. This is top tier, guys. This is absolutely top tier. Can't tell you enough how good this doctrine is. Essentially, guys, you can still move and you get cover. And there's no range restrictions. Unlike Raven Guard and other armies, like Orcs, for example, who have these range restrictions where if you get within 12 inches, suddenly they don't benefit from being in cover. Nuh-uh. These guys always count as being cover as long as you don't advance. You still move. Move as to your heart's content, but you just can't advance. Now, that is really good. It essentially means, unless someone has ignored cover, guys, you've got Carapace Armor across your entire army. That is so strong. I know many players who said that is the one thing they wish, if Games Workshop bring some form of Carapace Armor back for Imperial Guard. They've just done it, guys. They've just done it. It's absolutely fantastic. Unless someone has ignored cover, it increases the durability of all your infantry by 16%. That's better than any other trait out in the main book, or that's such a good defensive buff. Yeah, Imperial Fist Shred. That's absolutely fine. I acknowledge that, but at the end of the day, guys, Marines shred in general. Marines just do that in general. So trying to compare this kind of stuff to beating Marines is, it's not, you're not going to have a good time trying to do that. You have got to compare this to the wider meta, wider armies. And when you think about it, there are not a huge amount of armies out there which have, apart from Imperial Fists and Iron Warriors, you don't see a lot of Iron Warriors, to be honest. Apart from those guys, you don't see a lot of army-wide ignores cover. And those factions which have it don't tend to really take advantage of it. There's other things out there which are better. And there are some armies which just flat out don't even have access to ignoring cover, or if they do have access, they've got to pay points for it, or CP. It is really good, guys. I can't express enough how good that trait is. It is, again, probably top tier. Okay, so moving on to the next trait then. Jury-rigged repairs. At the start of your turn, roll 1d6 for each vehicle model from your army with this doctrine that has lost any wounds. On a 2 to 4, that model regains 1 lost wound. On a 5+, that model regains up to d3 lost wounds. Now, this is a really, really good trait. Don't get me wrong. And it's probably equals second on the best ones to take for vehicles. It really is very good. The problem is that if this had been around at the beginning of 8th edition, this would have been fantastic. But the thing is that it's just not that hard to just annihilate a guard vehicle. There are so many things out there which the enemy can use to destroy, Lehman Russes, for example. And what this trait effectively does is encourages your opponent to just finish vehicles off. Previously, your opponent could have gone, right, well, I've got it down to 11 wounds. I'll leave, got it down by 11 wounds. I don't really want to shoot anything else at it. I'll leave it, it's crippled anyway, it's a guard vehicle. Now the enemy goes, all I have to do is take off one last wound, I'll shoot at it with some spare firepower, it's only going to have a 3+ save, that's it. So this is a really, really good trait if your opponent makes the mistake of spreading his firepower out too much. However, most good guard players know the golden rule of Warhammer, which is shoot something until it's dead. When it's been removed from the field, move on to the next target. It's basic tenet of the Tactical Imperialis. Most players pick it up very quickly. If you split your fire, if you spread your fire too much, you're going to have a bad time. So whilst on paper this one looks really good, when you actually start using it, it's not that great. Now I've used this in 2 games now. One on the battle report, go and watch it. And the second time I used it this Tuesday when facing against Imperial Fists. And yes, it was with my Armageddon Steel Legion versus the Imperial Fists, and it was a difficult game. I did manage to eke a draw out by playing to the mission, but it was a very difficult game. But the point was that this didn't really help me, this trait. I maybe regained 6 wounds, 5-6 wounds across the game, thanks to this trait. Not a huge amount, and nothing that my opponent cared about. Because if what my opponent would do was annihilate a vehicle, move on to the next, annihilate the vehicle, move on to the next, annihilate a vehicle, and then get the 4th vehicle down to sort of half wounds. My opponent doesn't really care if one of my vehicles is on half wounds because he's Marines. He's just going to move on to the next one. And taking Marines out of the equation, like I said previously, you shouldn't compare everything to Marines. That's fine. But if you look at the battle report that I had with Johnny, you can see that all he does is simply just make sure that my vehicles die. He just moves on, and if there's a little bit of overkill, it's not the end of the world. So I would say it is a very, very good trait, because I have used it against 2 very heavy shooting armies and it hasn't helped me all that much. But I imagine if you're playing against a more balanced force, this would end up accruing you a lot more wounds. Yeah, I think this one, don't get me wrong, I think it is really, really good, but I don't think it's as good on paper as it is in reality. However, you could, the best way I see taking this is through absolute armor spam. Like, I'm talking 9 Lehman Russes or something crazy, something similar to that, because what that means is you're going to get, it's definitely when you want to take on a pure or very heavy mechanized tank based armored army, because if you take it on a hybrid force, you're probably going to regain like 2 or 3 wounds over the course of the game. Not really a huge amount. To get maximum efficiency out of this, you need to have it across your whole army, and you need all your vehicles to be a threat all the time. So your opponent either concentrates his firepower and overkills, and therefore, he's not damaging other vehicles, or your opponent tries to spread his firepower too much, and you start undoing the damage that he's done. It is really good. Don't get me wrong. Weirdly, how I think this would have been better but maybe this would have been too powerful, is when you get hit by a weapon with one of your vehicles, roll a d6. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2 to 4, you reduce the damage by 1. On a 5 to 6, you reduce the damage by d3 to a minimum of 1. I think that would have been a really good way of doing it, but maybe that would have been way too powerful. As it is, this is still a good trait. It's just, and I still think you should take this as your second choice for your armoured lists, your armoured custom doctrines. But just temper your expectations. You'll be surprised how it doesn't quite do as much as you're expecting it to. Lord's Approval. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a regiment infantry model with this doctrine, whilst within 9 inches of a friendly regiment officer, improve the armor penetration characteristic of the weapon by 1, e.g. AP 0 becomes AP -1. Now this is an interesting one, because This does directly increase your damage output, but it is in close combat. Now, I know a lot of people will outright dismiss Combat Guard. I've seen other summaries of these regiment traits done by other channels on YouTube, and they don't quite understand the potential that this one has, because as Guard, you're going to be throwing around a lot of attacks, so running melee Guard is actually perfectly viable, and I have demonstrated that on this channel. On this channel alone, I have charged down Tau gun lines, which is normally something you couldn't do, but because I tailored my army to be good for it, and that's the great thing about the Imperial Guard, you're not a one-dimensional army, you can tailor, and by specialising and tailoring for certain role, your army can actually become as good as compete with the big boys of a certain thing. So, for example, Orcs are a traditional melee horde army. They're really good at that. I get it. However, if you tailor your Guard army for combat, you can do combat as good as the Orcs can. They'll never admit it, of course, because they're Orcs. But the truth is that you can have 180 Orc boys. That's as many as you can get realistically at 2,000 points. I've done the points, the list around it for all the supporting characters like Knobs with Wild Banners and War Bosses and Pain Boys and Big Mechs with Custom Forefields, that kind of stuff. All the buffs you stack on, you typically come out with about 180 boys after that. Now, Guard can very easily run 300 infantry. You could out horde the Orcs, and the great thing about if you were going for Combat Guard is that you do still get really good firepower. You just enough firepower to soften up any enemy before you start sticking in with the pointy end. But you can run an effective Guard army, and I would put a Guard combat army up against an Orc combat army, and I would put money on the Guard one, simply because the Guard one can screen and can counter punch really effectively. Guard combat is not to be underestimated. One of the best Guard lists at the moment is Strachan Guard, which is where you take a priest, you take Strachan, you take as many infantry as you get your hands on, and you're getting 3 strength 4 attacks per guy. Okay, and that is the gold standard of Guard combat armies, and it is super effective. That shit beats Elder Plains, it beats Tau gun lines. It's really good. So don't just dismiss this because, oh, it's Guard combat. Guard combat is good. Think about this for a second, just for a second. You take 2 Guard infantry squads, you give them no upgrades. You just take 10 guys, Sergeant Last Pistol and Chainsword, it's 80 points. You just slap in a priest in there. Slap a priest in. Okay? And you have an officer nearby. Gee, it could be a platoon commander, could be nothing. In total, what you're looking at is 135 points. Okay. Now, if that gets into combat, or the equivalent thereof, maybe it's 3 squads, 2 of them get killed down to half men, whatever. But let's say the equivalent of 20 guardsmen, which is not a lot, gets into combat. Now, if you've gone the Emperor's Conclave detachment, what you're looking at is 20 guardsmen who are hitting on 4s, fair enough, rerolling 1s in combat, so it's like they're hitting on 3s, and they get then the wounding, but they've got an AP -1. That's really good. So what you're looking at actually is in the first round of combat, you're looking at 40 attacks, but you've actually got, because you're looking at 20 guys, but the priest gives them +1 attack each, so that becomes 40 attacks. Then don't forget the sergeants get 4 attacks each, because they get 1 base, 1 for a chainsword. No, they get 2 base, sorry, 1 for a chainsword and 1 for the priest. So 4 attacks on sergeant is nice. That's 8 attacks. So we're actually looking at 46 attacks. Okay, that's really good. You're going to hit with, like I said, 2/3 of them, which you're going to hit with like 30 after rerolls. And then you're going to wound, let's say you're fighting Marines, you might fight Marines. You're going to then wound 10 times, and the Marines are going to fail half those saves. So if that's out of 5 dead normal Marines, that's just a bare bones squad just killed. Or you just killed half a Primera squad, which is still a significant achievement, because guess what? Those Primaris, they ain't getting out of that combat. Which means when it comes round to your next turn, you can fight again, because you can if you surround those Marines. Now, and if you didn't have that AP -1, then what you're going to kill, like what, 2 Marines, 1 Primaris Marine? It's nothing. It's just nothing. It's just not enough. Whereas what this basically gives you is like mini power weapons on all your guys. Think about that. Imagine if you know, people were like, oh, I really hope Guard don't get AP -1 las guns. Okay, but what about AP -1 in combat, and I can get 2 attacks per guy, which is like a las gun, without first rank fire, second rank fire. It's like a las gun having AP -1. It is not to be underestimated, this, at all. And it combos really well with the last trait we're going to talk about. We'll not get to that one yet, we've got one more before then. Monster Hunters. When resolving an attack made with a heavy weapon by a model with this doctrine against a monster unit, an unmodified wound roll of a 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on a target in addition to any other damage. So if you've got a heavy weapon, you shoot a monster, get a 6 wound, mortal wound on top of. This is terrible. Absolutely terrible. And the reason it's absolutely terrible is it only affects monsters. And monsters are not meta. And they've never been meta. I mean, there was a brief moment when people were taking like 8 Hive Tyrants. You know, brief moment. But, you know, monsters make up of... There are more factions out there that have vehicles than that have monsters. Okay? So why would you take a trait that caters to the minority of big things? Not even that it's a small minority of all units in 40k, and even on the heavy support units, it's even a minority there. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this trait. It's just not worth it. If it was all weapons, if it was las guns, I'd get it, because then you could get loads of mortal wounds. But it's heavy weapons. Most heavy weapons don't have a really high shot output. The only thing I can think of that this would be any good for is on a Punisher tank. But Punisher tanks aren't great at killing monsters or vehicles. Punisher tanks are great at killing infantry. That's what they're designed for. So the best vehicle you can put this on, the best weapon you can put this on, you're trying to make it do a role it's not really designed to do. You take a Punisher cannon, you take 40 shots on that thing. If you've got a normal Leman Russ with that thing, that's only 20 hits, and that is at most 3 mortal wounds. And if you're a tank commander, that goes up to about 4.5 mortal wounds. So 4 to 5 mortal wounds. It's okay, but that's on one unit against one specific type of unit. That's the best case scenario. And the push cannon, yeah, you can tweak it, but you know you've got to start. It doesn't have any AP, so most times those monsters are going to just make those saves on 3-ups. You could give it AP -1 via tank ace. We'll look at that in another video. But then what you're doing is you're putting all your eggs into this monster hunting Punisher cannon to try and make it do something it's really not designed to do. So this is the weakest one. Out of all the ones we talked about, this is the only one that I would never consider unless Games Workshop by some reason made monsters just super powerful and meta, and Punisher cannons like 10 points each. And if that happens, then this trait will be good. But until then, it's just no use. I have heard some people say this is good against Riptides. I believe Riptides have the battlesuit keyword and not the monster keyword. They're not vehicles. I know that. But I don't think they're monsters either. I could be wrong. But let's assume, for sake of argument, that Riptides are monsters. Even so, this thing is no good. It's no good. It's just not going to help you. You'd have to take so many high volume shot weapons to tailor against one specific Tau list, which I don't think we're going to see a huge amount of going forward, because the Tau have changed so much with Psychic Awakening. Anyway, point is, I'm not going to spend any more time on it. It's a bad trait. So the last one we're going to be talking about is Slum Fighters. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by an infantry model with this doctrine, an unmodified hit roll of 6 scores 1 additional hit. That's exploding hits in melee. That is so good. That is so good for your melee guard army. it just gives you increased damage output. So whilst a lot of people would say guard combat isn't that great, you've got two traits here, Lord's Approval and Slum Fighters, which let you be good at combat and doesn't restrict you to Catachan infantry. I mean, the question is, does Lord's Approval Slum Fighters Custom Doctrine beat Strachan Guard? I'm not sure it does, but I don't think it's that much worse than it either. Strachan Guard has going for it the fact that they get one attack more each per guy, and they've got an extra strength. These guys have going for them that they have AP-1 on everything, all the time, pretty much, and they can get that high volume of hits by getting a 6 to hit. And when you think about it, you might think, oh, 6s to hit aren't that common. Okay, but think about this for a second. 6s make up 33% of the dice that you of your hit rolls. That's because, you know, half the dice, you know, you get 4, 5, or 6. 33% of the ones that you hit with should be 6s. 33% should be 5s, and 33% of the ones that you hit with should be 4s. Roughly. I'm not a super mathematician. That might be totally wrong. It does feel a bit funny, but the point is that a third of the dice that you roll that become hits are 6s. So actually, this increases the amount of dice. When you look at it that way, that's actually quite interesting. So if we take our example before of having, what was it, 45 attacks, 46. You hit on 4s, but we're rolling 1, so you basically hit with 2/3. So you're going to hit with 30. Of those 30 that you hit with, out of the 45 attacks that you roll, 16% of them should be 6s. I think that's the accurate way of looking at it. So 1 and 6. So what's that? 5. That would be 30. So 8, roughly 7 to 8. 7 to 8. On the closer side of 8, because you've got 46 attacks. So 8 attacks that you hit with, which, like I said, is roughly 33% of the ones you hit with, which is 30. See, my math wasn't totally off. It was roughly. So if you get like that, those 8 attacks gives you an additional 8 attacks, 8 hits. You don't even need to roll to hit with them; they just become additional 8 hits. So if you roll 46 dice, then you have a chance of coming out with approximately like 37 hits. My math seems a bit off here. I could be totally wrong. But the point is that it's going to give you at least 5 to 6 additional hits. That's a big boost. So even if it just gave you 6 more hits, that's still a 20% increase. You know, it's mad, and when you take into account the amount of attacks you can spam, it really increases the amount of attacks you're going to get. So I'm not totally confident in my maths, and I would totally appreciate it if someone put down in the comments section below exactly how much it increases the number of attacks you have. But the point is, guys, is that you throw more shit at a wall, you're going to get more bonus attacks, and those bonus attacks are going to be at AP-1. You're not restricted to a single doctrine either. You know, you could take a couple of regiments like this, a couple of detachments like this, and still take another detachment with another custom trait in it. Okay, so we've naturally progressed on to the next part of the video, which is looking at combos. You know, combine. Where do these new regiment traits combine? What are the best 2 to take together? Well, I've already talked about the best way to run a combat army. Combat infantry army is Lord's Approval and Slum Fighters. That is a really good way of running it. The best, I would say, shooting guard army, infantry army you can run is Disciplined Shooters combined with Wilderness Survivors. So that's where your infantry have all got an 18-inch rapid fire, and they're all rocking permanent cover save unless they advance. That is the best one, because the reason why those 2 pair together nicely is you're not having to sprint up the field to try and get into rapid fire range. You're going to get into rapid fire range really quickly with Disciplined Shooters, because it gives you an 18-inch rapid fire, and all your infantry against the majority of attacks that they're going to face are 16% more durable. So they are slower, don't get me wrong, but they're still putting out the same fire damage output, no problemo. So they're more durable, and they're putting out more damage, or they're putting out, yeah, they're putting out more damage basically, because they're not having to spend turn after turn trying to get into rapid fire range. I think a good for tanks, for armor, I think you're always going to want to take Gunnery Experts, unless, I don't know why you do this, but you run no random shot weapons in your army, in your tanks. If you run all Punishers, all Exterminators, or Vanquishers, let's assume you are not a pants on head bonkers person, and you are running lots and lots of battle cannons, which are the best guard choice for your Leman Russ. Gunnery Experts, without a doubt, is your #1 pick. After that, I would probably look at the jury-rigged repair one, because it does mean that your tanks will become more durable. However, I would say that if you're running lots of Demolisher, if you're not running a lot of battle cannons but are running lots of short range special weapons like executioner plasma cannons and Punisher cannons, well, not really Punisher cannons, Demolisher cannons. If you're running lots of Demolisher cannons, then you probably want Spotted Details instead. Okay, but if you're not running lots of short range weapons, if you're running lots of long range battle cannon tanks with plasma cannon sponsons, then you want to combine Gunnery Experts with jury-rigged repairs. No doubt about it. They're the two best ones that combo together. So for pure infantry, you actually, or for infantry guard, you have a couple of top options. I'd go, Lords of Approval and Slum Fighters definitely. And then Disciplined Shooters, Wilderness Survival. The other ones, okay, I don't think Disciplined Shooters, if we take it as read, the Disciplined Shooters is probably the best one you want to go for. I don't think it pairs well with Pyromaniacs, because then you're getting within your short range anyway. Because your Flamers will got like an 8-inch range, so you don't want that one. You're not taking advantage of your 8-inch rapid fire. Agile Warriors, not a huge fan. I mean, it could pair with it. I actually think Agile Warriors combines best with Fire from the Hip. If you want a fast-moving infantry army, then you want, and if you're focused on advancing with your infantry, then you might as well take Agile Warriors and Fire from the Hip. However, actually, you know what? I think Agile Warriors and Disciplined Shooters could work quite nicely. Because you could really guarantee turn 1 that you get into your rapid fire range, because you're going to move and advance. You've got a good chance of getting like the 12-inch movement on that. And that's going to get you within 18 inches of the enemy. And you just pop down forwards for the Emperor, the Order, on those infantry squads that you've done that with, and you're still getting your 2 shots. However, yeah, that's the way. I think Disciplined Shooters pairs fairly well with Agile Warriors, and I think Agile Warriors also pairs fairly well with Fire from the Hip. Pyromaniacs, amazingly, I think combines better with some of the close combat stuff. If you're taking a regiment which is planning on getting up close and personal anyway, Lords of Approval, Slum Fighters, then I would go Pyromaniacs with. I'd probably pick Pyromaniacs with Slum Fighters. Definitely. You're just piling on the wounds then. But Monster Hunters, big no-no. Fire from the Hip, not impressed. Combined all specs, not hugely impressed. I think Gunnery Experts and either Spotted Details or Jury-Rigged. Disciplined Shooters and either Agile Warriors, but almost certainly every single time you're going to want Wilderness Survivors. And then Lords of Approval with Slum Fighters, no doubt in my mind. So they're my top combos. I'd be really interested to know what you guys think. Do you think I'm on the money? Or do you think I'm totally wacko and I've totally missed the whole point and I've missed some crunchy combos? Please let me know down in the comment section below. I'm really, really interested to know the kind of combos that you guys have come up with. I will just say, to answer one question that I remember someone asked me in one of my other videos: if you have Wilderness Survivors, do you all, and you're in cover, do you get +2 to your save? No. What Wilderness Survivors means is that whether you're in cover or not in cover, doesn't matter, you get a cover save. It doesn't give you +1 to your save. Okay, so if you're in cover and you have Wilderness Survivors, you're still only getting +1. You're not getting +2. Okay? So, but that's just one question I remember someone asked me in a previous video. So, without further ado, guys, I'm going to wrap the video up there. I hope you guys have really enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If you've got any cool pictures you want me to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page. And thank you for listening. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.